Hey guys, Gary J here, and here's another beautiful pistol here, one of my favorite pistols of all times. And this is an old design. This design here is about 160 years old. It's amazing that they could build and create such an aesthetically beautiful pistol like this 160 years ago. But some of you already know what this is. This is the Colt Army Model 1860 44 caliber. The Colt Army Model 1860 44 caliber. Now this pistol was probably used more in the Civil War than any other pistol. Now this is a reproduction of course. And it has just a beautiful design to it to me. It has a round barrel here. And it has an engraved cylinder here. And the rear sight is in the hammer back here. We'll look at that. The front sight here generally is very small. I put another front sight on. I took a nickel and a Dremel tool and made a front sight for it to make it higher up. These pistols always shoot very high. And sometimes 18, 20 inches high. That's the way they were designed. If you were going to shoot somebody with one of these pistols at close range, you would aim for their belt buckle. If you're going to shoot somebody, always aim for the belt buckle because it's going to shoot about 18, 20 inches high. And that was designed so that they would shoot, and when they shot, they would kind of make it like an arc and go out a lot farther. And because they were shooting, these are fairly accurate if up to 50 to 75 yards. Some people can shoot them out to 100 yards. And there are ways to accuratize these pistols, these modern day pistols too, to make them more accurate and easier to shoot that way. And they're extremely fun to shoot. Now this one again is 44 caliber. When you're dealing with a 44 caliber pistol, you're using a different type of 44 caliber ball than you would use with a rifle 44 caliber. A rifle uses a 44 caliber, which is 440 thousandths of an inch, but it uses a ball that is 10 thousandths smaller, 430 thousandths of an inch ball. You put a patch on that. That patch is basically 10 thousandths of an inch, which will fit a 44 caliber perfectly. These are oversized instead of undersized like rifles. Instead of this being a 44 caliber, 440 thousandths of an inch diameter ball, it will be 11 to 14 thousandths of an inch in diameter, which is about 11 to 14 thousandths of an inch bigger than 440 thousandths. Because you want that ball to seat in there really tight. Now here's a Buffalo Bullet Company. This is 44 caliber, 451 thousandths diameter on the left right there. Now if you look at that 451 thousandths, if this was a rifle, it would be 440 thousandths. Rifles are different. Don't put rifle bullets in these pistols because they're too small. And you can have what's called chain fire. Chain fire is a terrible thing that happens with these kind of pistols if you don't know how to load these correctly. So you really have to know how to load these pistols, because what happens in chain fire is that you have like 6 cylinders, and when you shoot the first shot here, flames come out both sides here. This is the nose cone of the barrel. Flames will come out here and over here, but they will blow into the cylinders here. Sometimes when they blow into the cylinders, they will cause, the flames and the heat will travel down past the ball into the black powder here in the back. Some say it has to do with the caps as well. However that's caused, the main cylinder that you shot from Sometimes this cylinder, and this cylinder, and this cylinder, and the ones around it will all fire. You'll end up shooting 6 bullets, almost simultaneously. And these bullets will fly out here and here. The worst one is the bottom at 6 o'clock. It'll hit the frame right here, and usually it'll blow the gun apart. So that's kind of dangerous. You don't want chain fire. So if you think about getting into shooting black powder pistols, they're a lot of fun. They're real simple to shoot. They're real easy to shoot. You just have to be aware of how to load these pistols correctly so that you don't run into this problem of chain fire. That's a very rare thing, and they're very, very simple to load and use, and a beautiful pistol. So about 200,000 plus of these pistols were made. And I think the Army in the Civil War, they received over 120,000 of these pistols. And that's very interesting. Another thing too, this pistol design here, we have the frame here, which is the same frame that you find on an 1851 Colt. And the only difference is that we have a cylinder that's rebated, which means it's smaller back here like the 36 caliber, but it expands right here to accommodate the 44 caliber bullet or ball or conical. Whereas the 1851 Navy, which this is made after, was a 36 caliber, which is a smaller caliber. So that's kind of interesting to know. These guns have probably been copied by a lot of different companies throughout the years, more than any other historical pistol, I would imagine. So you can find all kinds of these pistols, some made by Taylor and Pieta, which are considered some of the best, and Uberti is one of the best companies also that make these reproduction pistols, and they work really awesome. There was a fluted design pistol, had flutes on it, kind of like you see on the modern day Colts with the flutes through here, and that was usually marked September the 10th, 1850. Now, this pistol here is marked September the 10th, 1850, but it's not fluted, which I think is an error in the way that they designed that particular pistol, because generally they were fluted on the side here like the regular single six pistols. So I don't know why this one is marked that way, it's stamped that way, but that's the way probably some companies do it. Now, one of the things about Colt that was very interesting to me was that when they made these pistols, they knew, well, there are other companies that are going to make them. You know, how people steal other people's patent and stuff like that. Especially in other countries, you can't really do much about somebody stealing your patent in another country. So what Colt did to make their signature series on these pistols, they did something that was too expensive for most people to reproduce. And that was on these cylinders, and we'll look at that. They put engravings on here, like a naval battle scene here on the cylinder. And there's a process they use to do that that's very expensive. And that way, nobody else would, if they were going to copy this pistol, they would not spend the money to buy the scroll work system that they use to put these battle scenes. And they had other different types of battle scenes besides naval scenes on these different types of pistols of that era made by Colt. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'll take a look at this a little bit closer, and notice it does have a round barrel. It's not octangle like a lot of them you see. And we'll take a look at that. Okay, guys, we'll take a closer look at the Colt 1860 pistol here. And let's see if we can see this scroll work right here. Pull the hammer back about half cock here. That allows us to rotate, and you can see that. And we see naval scene right here of ships. And this is the Texas Navy here. And this was something that other companies could not do. It's very expensive to do this. And it's just really amazing when you see the beauty of these cylinders and what they meant. And there's the patent number there. You may be able to read that right there. I think that says September 10th, 1950. Normally, again, this would be fluted here. And you see how the cylinder right here is small right here, and then it widens out right here to accommodate the 44, because they used a 36 caliber in 1851 Colt Navy. And just a unique, simple, beautiful design pistol here. And this is that sight that I put on here. That's a nickel, and I use a JB Weld to hold it here in place. And generally you want a sight that's squared off and cuts back in. That way you don't get glare like you do a round one here. The reason I put a higher sight, because these all shoot high. Remember, if you're going to shoot somebody with one of these pistols, they shoot about 20 inches high, 18 to 20 inches high, because they were made to shoot with an arc, 75 to 100 yards out. And with a 44, if you hit somebody just right, it could go through 2 or 3 people with some of these, with the conical bullet type ammo. Now, the round balls are made kind of, when they hit you, they splatter. They just splatter that way. They do a lot of trauma to one person, but the conicals could go through you if they hit you just right. And right here, this is where you put your caps on to load it. Interesting thing, it's unloaded, I can tell you. Interesting thing too, the rear sight is right here. See this right here, cut right here? That's your rear sight. And when you're aiming at your front sight, you see your front sight here, and when you're aiming at it, you would simply put your front sight there. Hard for me to watch this camera at the angle that it's in. You see these are pretty large cylinders here where your 44 caliber goes. These were pretty easy to take apart. Okay, looking at the pistol here, they're real easy to disassemble. Basically, you got a pin right here, this flat pin right here, goes all the way through to the other side. It's got a little spring in here that's flipped up so it won't accidentally fall out. If you want to take this apart, push this right here with your thumb. Usually you can't do it with your thumb. You're going to have to use a little wood mallet or something, plastic, to do that with. But this one will push out, and you see how it comes out right here. You pull it almost all the way out. That releases your barrel, and I pull the barrel right here, and you see the barrel comes off. And so this is the barrel tube. And on the barrel right here, you got your ramrod system here. You just squeeze this right here, both sides, and pull backward. Okay. And when you're seating your ball right here, you pull this down. It acts like a fulcrum, and it pushes this piece right here, which is round, like for your round ball. You can use that on a conical, and get that in focus. So you pull this right here, and that's how you push your ball in against your powder inside the cylinder. Okay, you just push that up. So it's a pretty neat design. And I've had this barrel re-blued, so that's why it looks kind of like brand new. Again, this is a reproduction pistol, and this is what it looks like on the back side right here. And you can see the lands inside the barrel right there. They look really good. So this guy's not hurt. And this part right here, again, we got a navel scene right here, on here, which is really, really pretty. It's probably hard to see right here, but nobody's going to make this kind of scroll where it's kind of like what they do with like $20 bills and stuff. They put something on there, holograms and all that stuff, so that people can't counterfeit it. Nobody was going to spend the money to make cylinders like this. And looking forward at it. And this cylinder just slides off. And you can see where your percussion primer caps go right here. And you got 6 cylinders. And this cylinder looks really, really good here. And the cylinder goes over this rod, which is a heavy rod, and that pin that holds your barrel on goes right here. And I think on the Remington, they don't have these grooves in here on the Remington, and that causes fouling sometime on the cylinders turning on the Remington, the black powder pistols. But these ridges right here serve a good purpose. You can lube these up with grease right here, and that keeps the cylinder from fouling up with black powder, because black powder is pretty dirty, but it's fun to shoot. And again, I mentioned that the pistol did not have a top strap over here on it. It has this big heavy steel rod and this lower steel frame to hold. Here's a 357 Magnum pistol here. And this one has a strap up here. And this is what I'm talking about, a strap up here. And of course, this uses smokeless powder, which is very powerful. Well, once in a while, somebody's reloading. I don't know if it ever happened with somebody who's not reloading, but it may have. Once in a great while, one of these cylinders right here will explode into 2 pieces. Like this piece right here at the top will blow off, and this piece right here will blow off. This strap keeps this from blowing out all over the place. I've seen these straps right here buckle up like that, keeping this thing from blowing out. Say if you had somebody beside you or something like that at a pistol range or whatever, this piece would go and hit somebody. But this kind of contains it somewhat. You can still get hit by shrapnel, but this helps a lot, this strap up here. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about, this strap here. That's a very nice protective thing. The 1860 Army pistols, they didn't have that. But it had a real heavy frame here, and it had a real heavy rod right here, steel rod here, that holds that cylinder. And black powder is not under the same pressure load as smokeless powder. And so if you want to put this back together, you got 2 little pins right here. You can see that. Okay, these 2 pins right here. You just take and slide your cylinder. Doesn't matter how you slide it. You want to grease this right here if you're shooting it. Now, I'm not shooting this one, so I don't need to grease it. So now, after you put your cylinder on, then this center hole right here is where this goes on. And see, there's 2 holes right here. These 2 holes right here will go on here. Okay? These 2 prongs right here. So that kind of locks your barrel in place. So turn it until it goes all the way in, like that. All right, so your barrel is there. Now you just push your pin in. Make sure it comes out the back side here, all the way in. And now, just pull your hammer back. And that's all you have to do, okay? So it's real easy to disassemble and clean that way. And that's one thing I like about these pistols too. Okay, guys, let's talk about accurizing these pistols a little bit, okay? If if you're shooting these pistols and they're just all over the place and you're saying to yourself, I don't know why this thing just won't shoot worth a flip, it's not accurate at all. There's certain things you can do to accurize them. Number one, look at the crown of your barrel right here. Sometimes people may have dropped them and hit the inside here of the barrel right here may be deformed a little bit. You can take one of those pyramid round shaped Dremel tools and stick it in the barrel here. You do not stick it into the Dremel tool to spin it. You do not use a motor of a Dremel tool. You do it by hand. And rotate it here until the crown here of the barrel is even. If you have a ding or dent in it or whatever, you can do that. Make sure it's even, it's perfect. That's one thing. Make sure the crown is good. Second, if looking at the barrel and one side is at an angle, it may be 15 thousandths of an inch higher on one side than it is the other. Use one of those little metal tri-squares that have a 45-degree or 90-degree angle to them, so you can check for the trueness of the barrel here. And if one side's higher than the other, you're going to have to get it flat with a file. Okay, take a file and go over that and get that exactly square. That barrel has to be square because you can imagine if one side is up, it's going to throw that bullet to the other side, so it'll never be accurate if you got that problem. Okay, so make sure this is square. Make sure your crown is good. You don't have any dings in that. If you do, kind of drill it out with your finger holding the bit of a Dremel tool, grinding stone. Looks like a pyramid shape. The other thing too is right here. Sometimes you may have a burr here or whatnot. Take that same pyramid shape Dremel tool and use your finger to smooth that out. Get rid of those burrs right here, because those burrs, lead is pretty soft, and when the lead goes into these right here, it will deform the lead. And that lead, as it goes down the barrel, may kind of ding. It's not going to go back and forth and ding, but it'll cause enough vibration in it as it goes through the barrel that when it comes out, it's going to go to the right or left or up or down just a little bit. And it makes a big difference from 25 to 50 yards, okay? So make sure there's no burrs right here. And that's one thing there too. Another thing too is on your cylinder. On the cylinders here, sometimes you can take that same pyramid shape grinding stone with your finger and you can smooth this out right here on these cylinders right here. Sometimes that will help with accuracy too. You take your balls right here. You should be able to place your balls on top of these cylinders right here. And if these balls actually fall, one of these balls actually fall into the cylinder, you got a serious problem, because that cylinder, that ball actually falls down inside here, a lot more so than that. Then when you press this ball inside the cylinder, then it's going to be a problem, because once you press it inside, it can become loose. Once you have your powder in here and your wad in here, this ball should be pushed all the way down and compressing that powder evenly. Okay, that ball should be pressing down against the powder very firmly. Okay, if it's not doing that and one of these balls come loose because they don't fit right, one of the balls come loose a little bit, you've got a gap, a pocket of air between the ball and the powder. Now that can cause a real problem in these cylinders. It can maybe split a cylinder or something like that. So if you're not sure, after you shoot it, you can look at it and see and make sure the balls are down the same distance. So make sure the balls won't fall in when you do that. Now when you press this ball down with like the ramrod here, a lot of times it will cut an edge around that ball, all the way around that ball. A little tiny edge of lead will come off of that. Some people like that, some people don't. If that piece of lead comes around, if you have a piece of lead, tiny piece of lead, maybe as wide as my finger, coming off the ball, you know that it's tight against the cylinders. Less chance of having a chain fire. Okay? And but some people, again, will smooth this out. So it just kind of wedges. It's supposed to go down and wedge. These balls are inside the cylinders here. So that's how they're supposed to do. There are a few other things that I could tell you about that, but I'll make this video too long. And so what we're doing here is putting this back on. It's very simple to do. Push your pin all the way through, make sure it comes out good, and your barrel is locked in, and you see your cylinder turning here. Okay. So that's kind of a simple way of accurizing these with the crown, deburring the end of the barrel here, maybe smoothing this out right here on the cylinders. And on your ramrod here, if you find out what load you want, like this holds 30 grains, it may shoot better with 25, it may shoot better with 32 grain. But once you know the personality of your particular pistol, say this particular one, then you always put the same amount of powder, always use the same type of powder. Different powders will have different effects on it. So if you're using the same type of powder, now see where this goes in right here? If you're trying to be really accurate, a lot of times people will put 30 grains of powder in here and put a wad over the top of that powder, and then they'll bring their rod down here and press that, not too tight but firmly, the same amount of pressure for each cylinder that you put powder in. And then when you put your well, I'm saying that, if you had 30 grains of powder in here and you had your wad on top of that, and you came down to right here, which is hard to see, you came down so far, you can mark this ramrod here. You would mark it, make a cut on it with a small file or something, and once you got to that point, you stop. And you know that the powder in the wad is compressed, and it's going to be evenly every time you do it for each cylinder. So you want the same amount of pressure for each cylinder. And then when you put your ball on top of this and you can press your ball until it's tight the way you want it, you'd make a second notch into this rod right here. And every time you set a ball, you would go down to that second mark. That way you know each cylinder has the same compression with powder and the ball on it. Because if one is a little bit higher than the other, it's going to throw your accuracy off a little bit. And you won't really need to do that unless you like target shooting probably, or you want to be really accurate. Okay. And conicals shoot a little bit differently. They're bigger. They go through animals. People have shot buffalo riding horses with 44 calibers with conicals that went through a buffalo's chest. And they've been known to go through 2 or 3 people if it hits them just right in the military, because like the advancing armies in the military, like Civil War and stuff, people march close together, and they were people right behind them. And so you shoot 75 yards, you're your conical is going to go. I mean, your lead balls are going to make a big arc. Conicals are going to make somewhat of an arc too. So they have a lot of damage they can do. So that's a little bit about the Colt 1860 design here, which makes it very interesting, very unique. You need a powder measure. Measure 30 grains. This is a cheap one here. So you can get them cheap and you can get them expensive. And the powder horn here. Generally, powder horns you take and drill out the end of them here. You can drill out the inside here until it holds exactly 30 grains. That way when you dump your powder in here and take this out, you'll have this full of powder, or you can pour it in and you'll have it consistently. So, and then some of these pistols you may want to make your own bullets with a bullet mold. I'll make some of mine. And this is a pistol flask. This is a smaller one. If you had 30 grains of powder, you can measure 30 grains of powder in here and cut this off at 30 grains so that if you had 40 grains or 20 grains, you find out what length you want this at. Now, normally I wouldn't do that with these things. This will screw off. You could put a different one back on there if you had another one. But if you were going to use 30 grains and you're going to use this flask all the time with 3F powder, then you might cut this off at the 30 grain mark once you figure out what that is. And that way you just, with these right here, what you do is put your finger over the end of it right here and push this lever, and the powder will free flow all the way to the end. Let go of it. That stops the powder from flowing from the flask, and hold it up like that. And then you would just take and dump your powder in here. Generally, you don't want a flask to do that with. You want to use something like this. Pistols aren't so bad. Rifles, you don't ever know. But if you use something like this right here, get that in line, and use your marker right here, how many grains you want right here. Like if you had that set at 30, you would just pour that in there. And this right here is really nice right here. These are your primers right here, primer caps. And let's see if you can see right there. You can push it until it pops up like that right there. I'm sorry. You just push it until it pops up like that. And what you would do then is take it and put it over your primer nipple right here and pull it. And say it puts a primer on your pistol right here. And then you go to you just push it again with your thumb, and you can kind of hold it upside down and do that very quickly with this. Because it's inconvenient to take your primers out of a little container. This is the quickest way to do it. Again, right here, push it a little bit, see where it pops up at the top. And again, you would take it and just stick it on here like that and pull it out. And you have your primer there. Real quick to do that, okay? And the primers have, they make a loud noise. They're pretty powerful. I mean, they're not going to hurt you or anything, but they're pretty powerful, and you get that smell from them. So that's something to consider. Now I've got a primer down here, cap, and then one on the bottom right here, so I know where it's at. And if you're going to take these off, you just take your fingernail and pull on them. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed looking at the 1860 Army Colt 44 caliber pistol. Another great pistol, beautiful design to me. And hope this gives you some idea, a little bit about black powder. And I'll probably go into a little bit more about loading these pistols and shooting these pistols at some time. Thanks again for watching. Gary J.